Okay guys, we're going to be learning about graphs and tables. So, we have some vocabulary we need to know. First of all, we need to know what a table looks like. A table, if you look up here, is basically you have like a T-chart, and you have X and Y values. And normally we have an equation that we would use to plug in these X and Y values. These are also called input and output. You might have learned them as input and output as a 5th grader and also 6th grader. So I also put that to remind you. X is the input, it's what we enter into the equation, and Y is the output, the number that results because of whatever we entered. Then we have a graph. You should be familiar with graphs, and just a reminder, we do have our x-axis, our x values would go here, and our y-axis, which are these numbers, they would end up going here. In our first example, they're asking us to make a graph, and they provided us with a table. So they gave me my x values and my y values also. I'm going to go ahead and plug them into my graph. If a graph is not given to you, you create yours. I saw my x values, and I saw that they were basically going in order. So that's why I decided to go ahead and make my x values just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I saw my y values, and I saw that they were even numbers, and they needed to go all the way through 10. And since I was short on space, I decided to make my y go by 2s, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And you can do that as long as you're consistent when you're writing the values. You can't say 2 and then 5 and then 10 and then 15. You have to make sure it goes by the same amount every single time. So now I can start graphing this. So we have a coordinate 0, 4. I'm going to go ahead and graph this. Remember, x values first. So I go to 0, and then my y is 4. So I'm going to go up to 4, and here is my first point. Now I'm going to graph the second one, 1, 6. So my x is 1, my y is 6. I'm going to go ahead and go to 1, up to 6, and here is my next point. Next one is 2, 8. So I go to my 2, and then I go up to 8. There's my next one. I'm almost done. 3, 10. So I go to 3 and all the way up to 10. And there is my graph. Now, depending on the graph, we might make it a line graph or just a point graph. In this case, we're going to go ahead and connect it. If it's a line, we can go ahead and connect it. So that's example 1. Here's a word problem. More likely, this is what you're going to see on the STAR test. It says we have a plant, and I changed this a little bit from your notes, so make sure that you make that change. I made it start at 1. So a plant is already 1 inch tall, and in 1 week it grows to 3 inches. In 2 weeks, in the second week it goes to 5, and the third week it went all the way up to 7 inches. Okay, so my first step is they want me to write a function. A function is another fancy word for equation. So you just need to figure out what's happening here. So I put it's starting at 1. This plant is starting at 1 inch, and every week it's growing by 2 inches. So using that, I can create an equation. Since I start at 1 and add 2 each week, I can say my equation is 1 plus 2 times the number of weeks, because every single time it's going to be multiplying to get how many more I need to add. So this would be my equation. Step 2 tells me to evaluate. The word evaluate means to solve. Plug it in and get an answer. So here, for week 4, I'm going to plug in a 4. 1 plus 2 times 4. I just flipped the order of this. It doesn't really matter. I could do 2 times 4 plus 1. We would get the same answer. So I went ahead and multiplied. The 2 times 4 gives me 8. And 8 plus 1 is 9 inches. So this plant would be 9 inches tall on the 4th week. Step 3 tells me to make a table and a graph. Well, we already have a table. We started off when at the beginning of the story, it was 1 inch. 1 week passed and it was 3 inches. 2 weeks passed, it was 5. 3 weeks passed, it was 7 inches. And at the 4th week, it was 9 inches. So now I'm going to go ahead and graph this just like we did in the first example. I'm going to go to 0, 1, 1, 3, 2, 5, 3, 7, and 4, 9. And there we go. I've got my table and I've got my graph.